I'm going to show you how to do a tubular netted bracelet. So this is tubular netting. It's a basic stitch. The only thing that is different about my bracelet is I have designed a different way to start and finish the bracelet so that you don't have to struggle with trying to put a bead cap on or a large bead at the end to hide the beginning part of your netting, or to make it a smooth transition into clasping. The way that I have done it makes a really nice smooth transition. It's really pretty on the wrist, and it is not that difficult to do. So traditionally you wouldn't start or finish it the way I'm doing, like I said, but this is it works out really well. So that's why I've chosen to show you on my beginners channel how to do that. Now, the beads in this I say in the beginning they're 4mm round, but as working with them, they're a bit more rondel shaped. They're not totally rondel, but they're closer to rondel shape. So I'm going to tell you in advance, you can go ahead and use a 4x3 rondel crystal. Works really well. You can use a 4mm bicone crystal. You can use a fire polished bead, or you can use a pearl, whatever you would like, as long as it's 4mm. It should work really well. If you have issues with the sections, the netting in between not covering very well, then you can add another 15-0 seed bead, and you may have to do that anyway if you're using a brand other than Toho, because Tohos are bigger than any other brand. So I'm speaking of the 15-0, 8-0, 15-0 sections of netting over the crystals. If you do your first net and you figure out that it's not quite covering, you will need to go ahead and add another 15-0 seed bead. So instead of putting two 15-0s and 8-0 and two 15-0s, you'll put three 15-0s and 8-0 and three 15-0s, and follow the directions just as though you were doing the amount of numbers I am doing. So that being said, let's go ahead and look at our material list. Okay, for this project today, you will need a few 11-0 seed beads, not a whole bunch, but just put out a small pile. And then you will need 15-0 seed beads. Now, both of these are the galvanized aluminum permanent finish in the Toho line that I'm using, 11-0 and 15-0. Then I'm going to be using a 4mm round, and this is a crystal. It's a Chinese crystal. It's a frosted opaque white. You can use a 4mm bicone crystal if you would like. You can also use a 4mm fire polish bead or a 4mm pearl. That will all work just fine. Then I'm going to be using 8-0 seed beads, and this is a Toho, and I think it's called Sunset, Golden Sunset, something like that. And kind of a different mixture of colors, but I think it'll turn out pretty. So I'm just going to go with it. And then I'm going to use a toggle clasp. I have this little fancy heart toggle that I'm going to use. A size 12 beading needle, since I'm using 15-0 seed beads. If your 15-0s accommodate a size 10, go ahead and use a size 10. I'm using 8-pound Nanofil. You can also use 10-pound Nanofil or 6 or 8-pound Fireline. All of that should work fine. You will thread onto your needle at least a wingspan, and a wingspan is when you stretch your arms straight out to your sides. You measure from your fingertips of the first arm, the length of the first arm across your chest, the length of the second arm to your fingertips. That is a wingspan. You will need to extend or tie on to your thread during this project. So if you do not know how to do that, I will post a video link that will help you learn how to do that in the description box beneath the video player. Go ahead and thread your needle. Let's get started. Okay, for this particular version of tubular netting, I'm going to show you to start it with a ladder stitch. Traditionally, you don't do that. This is just a modification I have made because it makes clasping very pretty and very easy at the end, as far as I'm concerned. So we're going to start with a ladder stitch. You're going to have some 8-0 seed beads out. Pick up 4 of them onto your needle. Bring them down to the end of your thread, and you'll want to leave at least a 12 to 14 inch tail, something like that, fairly long so that you can do your clasping at the end. If you do not want to do that and you know how to extend your Fireline, you can leave it shorter, which is what I'm going to do just so you don't have to watch me fuss with my tail. However, you will want to leave, if you're a very beginner, leave a nice long tail so you can put your clasping on. Now once you have your 4 beads where you want them positioned on your thread, leaving your tail, come up through 2 of the beads, the 2 on the tail side, the first 2 you put on, and just pull your thread through. This will wrap your second set of 8-ohs against your first set of 8-ohs. And then you will just come through, so you're coming through the first set now, come through the second set, just like this. I'm going to hold on to my beads while I pull my thread through so that they stay together, and then I'm going to come back through the first set where my tail is. So I'm just sewing in a circle, sewing these beads tightly together. And that is a 2-bead ladder stitch. Now I'm coming out where my tail is. I want to come down into this set, just like this, and then I'm going to pick up 2 more 8-oh seed beads. I'm coming out of this side, I'm going to go into this side and bring those beads down against the previous 2. And then I'm coming out of the previous 2 now. I'm going to go into the 2 I just added. And then back into the previous 2. And then I will have to come back into the 2 that I just added so that I can add 2 more. I'm just securing these nicely and tightly so that the end of our bracelet will be very secure. So now pick up 2 more, go through the opposite side from which you're coming out of the previous set. Pull the new set down, come through the new set, come back through the previous set, and then back through the new set. And we are going to continue doing this until we have 6 sets. So pick up 2 more, come through, come back through the first or the new set, come back through the previous set just to make sure it's nice and secure, and then back through your new set. Now I have 5 sets, so let's do 1 more. I'm going to come through the opposite end of the beads I'm coming out of, down through my 2 new beads, up through my previous set, and then back down into my new set. Now we have 6 sets of 2-bead ladder stitch. Now we have to connect this into a circle so we can make our tubular netting. So what we are going to do is we're just going to take this tail side and bend it in half to where our working thread here and our tail thread here are on the same side. Then we're going to come from this working thread side up into the tail side, just like this. Get you a little closer, come up through those beads. Now your tail is going to want to get in the way. Just pull on it and try to keep it out of your way. And then go down into, so now we're coming out of the tail side. We're going to go down into the working side, and then back into the tail side, and it should be nice and secure. Let's do it one more time just to make sure. Go into this set, you're coming out of this set, go into this set, go back up, and now you should have it to where your tail is on one side of this little funny thing we just made, and your thread with your needle on it is on the other side. Now we are going to prepare to do our netting stitch. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up 2 15O seed beads, and then we're going to pick up an 8O seed bead and 2 15Os, and I'll show you what I have. 2 15, an 8O, and 2 15. Now I am coming out of this double stitch right here. I'm going to go directly down into the next 2 stitches, just like this. Pull my needle through, and this will make a little loop on top of my circle of ladder stitch, just like this. Now I'm coming out of the bottom of this set. I'm going to go into the bottom and up through the next set and turn my little piece, and then I'm going to pick up 2 15Os, an 8O, and 2 15Os. And then I'm going to go into the very next set of ladder stitch. Go straight down through, pull this little loop down. Now I have 2 loops. Then I'll just go directly up into the next set of ladder stitch. Pull my needle and my thread through, pick up 2 15Os. Oops, that's an 11O. Oops. 2 15Os, I'll get there, and an 8O, and 2 15Os. Now if you're using Miyuki or something that's smaller than Toho, check, you may want to use 3 of your 15Os on either side instead of 2. Now we're going to go straight down into the next set of ladder stitch and pull. It's a little hard to hold on to at this point, but it's okay. It'll get better. Just kind of fumble through it. Now we're coming out of this set. We're going to go over to the next set and up through the 2 15Os on top of these 8Os. Right here. And I'm going to pull it up. And my thread just pulled funny, so I'm just going to keep pulling on it until I arrange it. So all I've done is come through these 2 8Os, these 2 15Os, and then I'm going to come up through this 8O seed bead. Just want to work our way to the top so that we are in the 8O right there. Now I'm going to pick up a 4mm round crystal, and I'm just going to go into the next 8O seed bead. So I'm just going to ignore all these 15Os and pick up the 8O right here. And I'm going to pull this in. And I want it to go right between those 8O seed beads, just like that. Then I'm going to pick up another 4mm round, and I'm going to go into the next 8O seed bead. And these beads are a little bit bigger than 4mm round, I think, but that's okay. Some Chinese crystals are not exactly what they are supposed to measure as. Now I'm coming out of this 8O, and I'm going to go into the 8O I started in, straight across, and I will go into the bead behind it that I just put on. The first one that I put on, the crystal, I'll go through it and pull. Now I'm just going to give a tug and push all of these down between the netted loops that I made, just like this. It should look like this. It's kind of strange looking, but that's what it should look like. Now you will want to, just to secure it, go through the next 8O, and the next crystal and the next 8O, just to make sure our first pass is nice and secure, because we don't want the end of our bracelet to pull apart. Now, you should be coming out of an 8O seed bead between 2 crystals, just like this. Then you're going to pick up 2 15Os and an 8O seed bead and 2 15-0s. You're going to cross over the top of the crystal, and you're going to go into the 8-0 on the other side of it, just like this, and pull. As you do this, you can just kind of push that up over the crystal. If it doesn't want to stay there, that's okay too, because as we come back through, we'll pull it up. Pick up 2, now we're coming out of this 8-0, down here between the crystals. Pick up 2 15-0s, an 8-0, and 2 15-0s. Skip over the top of the crystal, go into the 8-0 between the beads here. Hold on to your piece the best you can and pull through. And I got an 8-0 that, or a 15-0 that won't travel over my needle. These galvanized aluminum 15-0s sometimes can be quite a chore to use. Okay, so I picked up 2 15-0s, an 8-0, and 2 15-0s. Then I'm just going to travel into the next 8-0. Push the knitting up, tighten my thread, pick up 2 15-0s, an 8-0, and 2 15-0s. And then I'm just going to skip over the top of this bead and go into the first one I started in, right here. So into this 8-0, and I'm going to go into the 2 15-0s on the other side of the 8-0. Pull this together, pull the stitches up and in like this, and then go up into this 8-0 seed bead right here. And this is what you should have. It's kind of a funny looking little weird thing. Now we're coming out of an 8-0 here. We're going to pick up a 4mm round bead. We're going to go from this 8-0 to this 8-0 right here. The 8-0's on the top, peeking up on top of the crystals. We're just going to join together with another crystal. So then, after you've put your first crystal in, pick up another. Come from this 8-0 to the next 8-0 that's sticking up right here. Now, I'm just kind of holding on to my piece because when you very first start your first couple of rows, everything is a little wobbly and flimsy, so you need to just kind of fumble through it as you do it. And I'm pulling to get a little bit of tension here. Now, I'm coming out of this 8-0. I'm going to go into this 8-0 and the crystal behind it. Then I'm going to pull it all together, nice and tight. Then we're going to go into this 8-0. Again, the one right behind it, the crystal that we're coming out of. Pull it all together, make sure it looks good. Now if you find you have a lot of gaps, a lot of thread showing between the 15-0s, then add another 15-0. Pull that out and use 3 between each 8-0 on both sides of the 8-0. Now I'm coming out of this 8-0 seed bead. To secure it, I'll go through one more crystal and one more 8-0. And then I can pull on it and draw it all together. Pick up 2 15-0 seed beads, an 8-0, and 2 15-0s. Then I'm going to go from this 8-0 over the top of the crystal into the next 8-0. Let's get you just a little closer for just a few minutes, just so that we can make sure that you can see exactly where I'm going with my needle. Now I'm going to pick up 2 more 15-0s and an 8-0 and 2 15-0s. So basically it's a series of putting on your little netted ropes, this little part here, your little netted stitches, I guess I should say, not ropes, over the top of the crystals, and then filling those in with crystals. Pick up 2 15-0 seed beads, an 8-0, and 2 15-0s. You're coming out of this one, you're going to skip this bead, and you're going to go into this 8-0. Plus, you will go into the 2 15-0s after it, and if you can go into the 8-0, but it's kind of hard to do, so I'm just going to go into the 2 15-0s, pull it all together, bring these little netted stitches up, and then go into the 8-0. As you get a little bit more length, it's a little easier to handle, and you can just go through your stitches a lot easier. And as you can see, it's starting to form a net around the crystals. Now, give a nice tug, make sure you have good tension on your piece, and pick up a crystal. You're coming out of this 8-0. Let's go into the next one in the direction of our thread, of course. You don't want to cross over the top of your bead to go to the one behind it. Now, pick up another crystal. We're coming out this way. We're going to go into this one. And it's going to continue to pull loose a little bit, and that's okay. You just pull it back down. And then from this one into this one and the crystal behind it. Pull it down. Kind of helps if you put your finger over it and pull it all together so it's nice and tight and you don't have a whole bunch of gaps between your beads. Now go into this 8-0, the crystal behind it, and the next 8-0, and that's just a securing stitch. We already went through one crystal, but I like to go ahead on these pieces with a little bit bigger beads. I like to go ahead and go around it one more time. Then we're coming out of the 8-0. We're going to pick up 2 15-0s, an 8-0, and 2 15-0s. Coming out of this bead, we're going to skip over this bead and go into the 8-0 behind it. And again, 2 15-0s, an 8-0, and 2 15-0s. Like this. Skip over this bead, go into this one. Just do this slowly and gently until you get some length so that you can keep nice control. Pick up 2 15-0s, an 8-0, and 2 15-0s. And then you're going to skip over this crystal, go into this 8-0 and the 15-0, and if you can, go into the 8-0 behind them, just like this. So you're connecting your last netting stitch to your first one. Pull these up to the top. Give a nice little tug. And this is what you should have so far. Let's do a couple more just so that you can see how it's going to come together, and then we'll go to length off camera. So now I need to put in my layer of crystals. I've got my ropes ready and I'm going to join them with a crystal. So I'm coming out here, I'm going to go into this one. Pull it together. Pick up a crystal. I'm coming out here, I'm going to go into the next 8-0. Hold my beads together, give a little tug, pick up another crystal. Go from this 8-0 to the one we started in and the crystal behind it. Pull it together, and then I'm just going to travel through the 8-0 and the crystal and the 8-0 behind the one I'm coming out of, just to secure everything and give a little tug. And that's what that looks like so far. Let's do one more. 215-0, an 8-0, oops, excuse me, an 8-0 and 215-0. Skip over the crystal and go into the next 8-0. Very repetitious, very easy, and at this point I have a lot more control over it because I have something to hold on to now. And from this point you just kind of fly through it. It moves fast, it's really easy, very repetitious. 215-0s, 8-0, 215-0s over the top of the crystal into the 8-0 on the other side. Pull the netting down. Pick up 215-0s, an 8-0, and 215-0s. You can use 11-0s on this part too if you would like. Now I am going to go, I just find that the 11-0s cover the beads, the crystals too much, so I use 15-0s. Now I'm coming out of this 8-0, I'm going to skip over this crystal, go into this 8-0, and the 215-0s behind it, and the 8-0 on the top, joining my last net with my first net. Pull them on top of the beads, and then fill in with crystals. Go from 8-0 to 8-0, and see how much easier it is now that I have a little bit of stitching done. I can hold on to it, I can adjust it easier, make sure that my piece looks nice as I do it. It's just much easier now. Now I'm coming through my last 8-0, the crystal behind it, 8-0, crystal, 8-0, and secure. And that's what it looks like so far. So let's continue just doing exactly as I showed you. You'll put your nets on, then your crystal, your nets, then your crystal, and we'll continue doing that until we are about an inch short of the length we want. So a small bracelet is 6 inches, so you will go to 5. A medium bracelet is 7 inches, so you will go to 6 inches. A large bracelet is 8 inches, so you will go to 7 inches. And of course you can modify that as needed. If you want 7.5, then make the calculation. But go ahead and go to an inch short of the length you would like to have in your bracelet, and we'll be back. And this is what it looks like once you get some length to it. Turns out really pretty. Now this is kind of thick, so we're going to talk a little bit about length here. The thickness will always take up more room on your wrist. Now I want mine to be a little bit over 7 inches, so I did go an inch short of what I want. So right about here, this kind of scrunches up, so stretch it out. Right about here, just a little tiny bit over 6 inches is where I ended. Let me get this more in camera here, right there. And I'm going to go ahead and make this, it'll be even a little bit longer once I put the end, this end on this end, and put my clasping on. But that's okay. It'll probably come about 7.5 inches, maybe a little bit more. And that's okay because of the fact that this takes up room on the wrist. So even if our length comes out a little bit more than just an inch short of the length we wanted, it's okay because we're accommodating for the thickness of the bracelet. So now we need to finish this end, and this is a little bit trickier than the other end. So I have made my last layer with my crystals. I have not put the netting over the top. I've just gone to a layer of crystals, and that's where I want you to end your length, is the layer of crystals. Then I've gone around a couple of beads and 8-0s, making sure that it's nice and secure. So I secured it just like I showed you earlier while making the stitch. Make sure that all the beads are tight. And then you're going to pick up 2 15-0 seed beads, 2 8-0 seed beads, and 2 15-0 seed beads. Make sure you're coming out of an 8-0 seed bead between the crystals. And then go into the opposite side of that 8-0 seed bead and pull these beads down around it like this. Now go into the crystal next to the 8-0 you're in, and then into the next 8-0. Pull your thread through, pick up 2 15-0s, 2 8-0s, and 2 15-0s, and do the same thing again. You're coming out of this side, go into this side, and pull these beads down. Turn your piece, go into the next crystal, let me get this, and the next 8-0. Pull your thread through, tighten up your last stitch, and then again pick up 2 15-0s, 2 8-0s, and 2 15-0s. And then we're going to go into the opposite side of the 8-0 we're coming out of. And then you're going to sew into the crystal next to it. And then I'm just going to go through this crystal right here. Maybe. There we go. And then I will turn my piece sideways so you can see. So I'm coming out of this crystal right here. I want to go into this 8-0 seed bead. Just like this. Now I'm going to go up into these 2 15-0s and the 8-0 seed bead right here. I am going to pick up 2 8-0s like this, and I'm going to go down into the bead next to the bead I'm coming out of and pull these down. Lay them on top of the other beads as neatly as you can, making sure the holes are up. They will not lay perfectly yet, so don't struggle too hard. Just get them as neat as you can. Now we're coming out of this bottom 8-0. We're going to go into the next 8-0 on the next loop we created right here, and just go up into one. Pick up 2 8-0 seed beads and come down into the bead next to the one you just went into. Pull the thread through and give it a tug so that it tightens the first stitch and this stitch and kind of draws them together. And now we're coming out of this 8-0 here. We're going to go into the next loop, go up through the bottom of the 8-0 in this next loop, and pick up 2 8-0 seed beads. Go down into the 8-0 next to the one you're coming out of. Pull them together like this, and then go over to the 8-0 segment that you first created. Go down through the bottom bead and up through the top bead on that section now. Pull it together. And now we're going to group these together tighter like a ladder stitch. So we're coming out of this one here. We're going to go into the one next to it. So just kind of backtrack. Make sure you pull this tight so that your thread doesn't show a ton and that the beads draw together nicely, and then go through it again. So I'm coming out of this set now. I'm going to go up through this set. And then I'm going to move over and I'm going to go down through the set next to this set here. So just move over a set, go underneath the set you were just in, back into the previous set. So you're just sewing around both sets. Now I've turned my piece. I'm coming out of this set. I'm going to go into the next set. Then I'm going to go down into the set I was in. And then I'm going to go up through this set again. And again, I will do that. I'm going into the next set, up through the bottom of the set I just came out of, making sure that your thread goes underneath these 15-0s. Don't let it get caught on it. Then I'll go back into this set here, and then into the set next to it. Down through this set, and then up through this set, and then down into the next set just once. Now you look at the top and you make sure all of them have threads going across. So they're all connected. You have a thread here, you have a thread here, you have a thread here. Some of them will be sewn through a little bit more than others. Just make sure they're all sewn together. If you feel like you need to secure a couple more, that's fine too. Just continue doing the same stitch. Now I'm going to go up into these 2 beads so that my needle is this way, like this. Now I am going to show you how to put your clasping on. So you've got this end that looks like this end now. See? And like I said, if you feel like they're not quite tight enough, just continue sewing around until they are. You really can't fill these beads up too much if you're using a smaller thread and it's a big needle or a big bead with a big hole, so you should be fine. Now we're going to get our 11-0 seed beads out. And I'm hoping I have enough thread here. I may have to extend, we'll see. I'm going to pick up 2 11-0 seed beads, a crystal, and an 8-0. And I'm going to drop this down to my piece. And then I'm going to grab my clasp, one end of my clasp, and I'm going to go through it. Let me back off a little here. Then I'm just going to go down through the 8-0 and the crystal. So I've gone through the clasp, just the 8-0 and the crystal, and I'm just going to pull this through gently. And line it up so that your clasp is nice and up against your beads. Then pick up 2 11-0 seed beads. Now, we've just come out of this set of 8-0s. We're going to go down into the very next set of 8-0s. And we're going to pull these 11-0s down, just like this. And then we're going to go up into the very next set. So I'm coming out of this set right here. I'm going to go up into the very next set right here. And pull my thread through, make sure it goes down between the 15-0s and the 8-0s. Pick up 2 11-0 seed beads and go into the crystal, the 8-0, and the clasp. And then back down around the clasp into the 8-0 and the crystal. Don't get any of those 11-0s and come through. I had to extend my Fireline. So now I am coming out of the crystal and I'm going to pick up 2 11-0 seed beads. And go down into the very next set of 8-0s. So I've just anchored to that one. I am now going to go down into this one and pull my thread through and pull my piece tight up like this. Then I'm going to go into the very next set of 8-0s right here. So all we're doing is picking up 2 11-0s, going through the crystal and the 8-0 and the clasp, and then coming back down through the crystal, 8-0, so come up through, go through the clasp, come back down through the 8-0 and the crystal, and then pick up 2 more 11-0s and go through the next open set of your ladder stitch here. So pick up 2 11-0s. This is our last one, so we'll go into it. And we don't have to go back up through the crystal and the 8-0 again. We're just going to straighten these out, make sure they're tight, everything looks good, and then we're going to go up into these 2 8-0s right here. We're going to grab this thread bridge that's right between these beads. Make sure that everything looks good. If you need to, you can straighten it out with going in and pulling some of the beads out, however you want. They're not going to be perfect, but they are pretty regardless. So if some of them cave in, you can pull them out, but it truly doesn't matter. Then we're going to go into this thread bridge right here. So I've grabbed this little tiny piece of thread between the beads right here. and I'm going underneath it, creating a loop. I'm going to go through my loop and pull a knot down on that thread bridge. And then I'm going to go into a set of 8 O's right next to where I tied my knot. Oh, I lost my thread, sorry guys. So I'm coming out of this 8 O. After tying my knot, I'm going to go into the next set of 8 O's and pull. And then I'll just sew over, skip over, and go into the next set of 8 O's. Tie another knot on this thread bridge right here. So I'm going underneath the thread bridge, going through the loop I create, pulling the knot down, and then going into the next set of 8 O's. And then I'll go up this set of 8 O's right here. And this looks complicated, but it's really very simple. Once you get to doing it, you'll see exactly where everything goes. And then we're going to cut the thread off. And then I'm just going to burn that thread down. And I have a really pretty clasp. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend my Fireline on this side because I did not leave a long enough tail to do the sewing. I'm going to extend the Fireline. Now if you do not know how to extend your Fireline or Nanofil, which I'm using Nanofil, I will post a video in the description box beneath the video player so that you can learn how to do that. It makes your life a lot easier. So like when I had short thread here, I could just stop, extend, and then move on. It's a very, very strong way to extend your thread. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera. I'll come back and show you how to clasp this side. Okay, so now I have extended my Fireline over here, or my Nanofil over here on my tail. So if you left a really long tail, you don't need to do that. But if you did not, then you extend your Nanofil, and then you can now clasp. This side is going to be easier because we don't have to create the ladder stitch here. It's already created for us. So we are going to pick up 2 11O seed beads, a crystal, and an 8O, and drop this down to our piece. Let me get you a little closer. And then I'm going to pick up my clasp and go through it and bring it down. Now sometimes on this end it's nice to add 2 8O's just to make it a little longer if it won't pass through your toggle on the other side. Sometimes a big bulky bracelet will not do that. But I think this is going to be long enough to actually go ahead and pass through. So I think we're going to be okay. So now we are coming through this toggle here. I'm going to turn my piece. And I'm going to go back into just the 8O and the crystal, like so. I'm going to hold on to these beads and pull everything together until I draw it down to my piece, just like this. Now, see if we can get a little bit more organized here. Now you can see I'm coming out of this set of ladder stitch here. I'm going to pick up 2 11O seed beads, and I'm going to go right to the very next set of beads right there. Make sure you don't go into the 15 O's under them, just the 8 O's. Now I pull this and then I can find my next set of beads. I go up through them, pull my thread through, make sure it goes between the 8 O's and the 15 O's, give it a little tug so that it tightens up your previous stitches, and then pick up 2 11O seed beads. And then just go up through the crystal and the 8O, go through the clasp, and back down into the 8O and the crystal. Just the 8O and the crystal. And just organize it. If you get a little turn, just organize it so you can see your open sets of 8O seed beads. So we're coming out right here. We're going to go directly into this one right here. So open set. So I'll put my 2 11-0s in, pull down, and then I'll go in up through the next set. Then I will pick up 2 11-0 seed beads, and again go up through the crystal, and the 8-0, and the clasp. Well, I didn't get the clasp, so I'll have to go through the clasp. So now I'm going to go through my clasp, and then I'm going to travel back down into this 8-0, into the crystal, and just make sure my needle comes through without going through any 11-0s. It's like this. Just do it slowly and give it a good tug so that all of your previous stitches are nice and tight. Arrange your clasping so that it's central, and then pick up your last 2 11-0 seed beads. So I'm coming here. This is my last open set right here. I'm going to go through it. Give it a nice tug. Arrange everything. Make sure they look good. And then just go into the next set of 8-0s. To secure it, make sure it looks like you want it to look, and then grab the thread bridge right here between the 8-0s and the 15-0s. Let's see if I can get it. Okay, this isn't that hard, I promise. Okay, there it is. And then make a loop and go through the loop. Now we're going to tie off on the bottom instead of up here from now on, so it'll be a little easier. And you can do that on your original one too. Go through these two here, and then grab the thread bridge here on the bottom of the 8-0s. You can see a little piece of thread passing through there. Grab a hold of it, make a loop, go through the loop, pull the knot down, and then make sure everything's not all boggled up, and go through your next set of 8-0s. And then perhaps go down another set of 8-0s. Then cut your thread off. You can go around knotting and sewing through those 8-0s as much as you want. Cut your thread off, leave a little bit of a tag, burn it down, or use your thread burner, whatever you want to do, if you have one. Straighten out your beads. You don't really need to, because they kind of fall into place by themselves. And get everything out of the way here. And this is what we have. Very pretty. Now I'm going to see how well it fits me. I'm going to put it on my wrist, and it does slide through the toggle very nicely. And it fits very well. See, now, if I measure this, it's probably closer to an 8-inch, but because of the thickness of this, it fits me just like a 7.5, 7.25 inch bracelet would. So let's look at the length here. You want to measure from the middle of your round end of your toggle. Yep, see, it's close to 8 inches, but not quite. And normally that would be really big on me, but because of the thickness, it's not. It's perfect. It fits me perfectly. So that's the way you'll judge the length of your bracelet, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Just do it slowly, and you should be able to do just fine. Bye-bye.